Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Football Pass. Lots and lots to talk about this time, not least the fallout from the Old Firm at the weekend. A brilliant display from Manchester City, and just how many runners and riders there might be at the top of the English Premier League. And look forward also to the Carabao Cup semi-finals. Two, of course, single-leg games coming up this week. In the company of three proud Scotsmen, Gordon Strachan, Alec McLeish and Charlie Adam. We better start with certainly perhaps the biggest grin then as far as Ibrox on Saturday goes. That belongs, I'm sure, to Mr. McLeish. Perfect result, perfect performance, would you say, Alec?
No, Celtic played very well, and you know it's a measure of the recent form. You know, they came into the game with oomph about them and confidence, and you know it was interesting to see a new player in Sorrow, who I thought had a really good game also. But Rangers are made of a different metal now. I think in the previous 2 seasons, they've recruited better, and they seem to have, if you'll excuse me, grown a pair when it comes to some of these games where they might look as if they're going to drop some points. And as we saw last week, you know, they scraped a couple of victories against Hibs and now the Celtic game, and they've showed a real kind of strong mentality to their makeup, as well as you know, being a very good team for the most part of the whole season.
Gordon, were the positives from a Celtic point of view? They played pretty well for what, an hour?
Yeah, they did well for an hour, but as I said, I don't think Celtic can play too much. You look back a couple of Old Firm games recently where Rangers have had to take a hit, League Cup especially, when Fraser Forster was magnificent. So it was just, they kind of returned the compliment, Rangers, and so yeah, they did well. And funny enough, we were talking about on Friday when we discussed this, and because most pundits were talking about, oh well, if you play diamond shape, the fullbacks will get out. You know, the Rangers fullbacks will get out, and we were trying to explain to the football public that depends on what you win in the middle of the park and how you do it. Yeah, interceptions, knockdowns, getting to the ball first, passing from there. So Celtic won that battle in the middle of the park, and Tavernier and Barisic, who have been magnificent over the last 18 months, magnificent, had no crosses of any. So it just shows you when a group of players play that it's most important that you win that battle in the middle of the field, and when you can use because it was Frimpong and Laxalt who were doing all the attacking. Unfortunately, when they go about 20 yards out, they didn't produce the stuff that normally Tavernier and Barisic do at the other side. So I think that was a huge difference in the game, was the quality when they got in the last. Celtic made a few chances, but they actually got into real good positions where one pass gets some tap-ins, but they're not good enough when they got to that area. Yeah, am I losing my voice? Did I just hear something there?
No, that's my dog barking at the door.
I thought
Charlie's dog often gets involved from the podcast side.
So it was good to watch, and we discussed about how McGregor and Christie would get out there and they'd work at them. So a lot of this stuff happened with Celtic, but it happens again. Funny enough, most of the mistakes Celtic make come in the left centre-back position, whether you play 1, 2 centre-backs, 3 centre-backs. But that area seems somehow to be like a Bermuda Triangle when they run out there. Any Celtic left centre-back, where the ball goes in and it disappears from them and it ends up going somewhere else, and there's a goal or a mistake being made. So that was a big fault on that left side. And they've played Duffy over there, Ayer's been over there, Beaton ended up over there the other day there. So it seems to be that seems to be a problem area.
And speaking of Beaton, Charlie, obviously the sending off feels like a pivotal moment in the game. Did it decide the game for you?
Yeah, it changed the balance of the game. The game was in Celtic's favour. When you have a centre-back who's not playing centre-back, is it not a natural centre-back? he gets sucked in by Morelos. If you look at Morelos before he actually goes towards Beaton, he looks at him to see where he is, and he uses him to get his body in front. And listen, it's terrific. On the Rangers side, it's great striker play, but in Celtic side, why is he allowed to be out in that area on his own? You know, Ayer is a natural centre back. He should know his positional sense that even if Morelos gets by him, he was never ever going to get him. So that's why he's sent off. I think Ayer's position is poor for being a centre back. He should be helping Beaton and probably overprotecting him a little bit. And it's the first time Rangers really played one of the balls down the channel, because a lot of the Old Firm before that, the first thing they thought was that they'd get it out and it was to Goldson and they'd just play one down the line. And I think Tavernier was the first time he actually played one down the side, and it was a race for him and Beaton, and he won the race.
Yeah. Is that it then, Alec? Is that it? Title race done?
No, I don't think that's it. You know, I think if anything, Rangers have to get their foot down on the accelerator and realise over the last couple of years, around about this time, last couple of seasons, that at this time they started to drop some points after having some really, really positive results. Now, this time, when we're talking positivity, then it would be so many points clear is probably something that they never envisaged. Now, I think they have to take massive advantage of that, and that's why I believe that this is the year that they will do it.
So not over, but you're pretty hopeful by the sounds of it, certainly if they press their foot down. Gordon, is January likely to be a factor in terms of the transfer window, do you think, for either team?
I don't think it's that important now, to be honest with you. I think that most the Celtic board and Neil Lennon will be looking. Listen, you cannot give up on the title, that's for sure. And if I was a Celtic manager, I would just be saying to the players, come on, let's try and make them a bit worried. If it's 19 points, can we get it down to 9 after or 7 by the time it gets the end of, maybe mid-March? And that would make them worried of just a wee bit. That's the only thing they can do just now, is make them worried. You can't say to the players, let's claw back 19, lads. You go, oh, just a second. You go, can we claw back 11? Might do, because we've got 3 games in hand. They drop a point, that makes it back. There's a chance then that you actually start, because the Rangers camp will then start going, oh, just a second. Could I be the manager, coaching staff, player that throws away this huge lead? And I think that's the only thing Celtic have got to hang on to at the moment. But going back to your transfer thing, and everybody, recruitment's huge in football. Alec will tell you. I'll tell you, it's not so much systems as such. It's mostly what we were talking about. It's players winning games, individual brilliance, or mistakes like the game on Saturday when it comes off Callum's shoulder and goes in the back of the net, and Beaton getting sent off. So it wasn't anything fantastic with Rangers. It was mistakes that players made. So recruitment has to be right. So it's no big system. So if I was Celtic and Rangers, I don't think Rangers need to do too much. That's for sure. If anything, but Celtic, should they panic buy, spend a lot of money to try and get this gap? Don't think so. They should be thinking what's going to happen in 6 months' time, in a year's time, buying players for that. What system have we got to use? Who have we got to use? What manager have we got to use? Do we stick to the Neil? Do we put so there's a bigger thing going on, rather than, because there'll be targets. There's no doubt about that, because in the background, the recruitment people will be bringing them targets. And going back to that, there's a big thing on recruitment just now, and there's, when you're at big clubs, everybody's analysed, and more so in the last 10 years, where the recruitment's analysed and who's doing it. And I think people get this perception that Celtic or any top club say, that's your players are getting, they'll get on with it. It doesn't work that way. The recruitment come to you and say, listen, this is what we've got. We've got 4 players. Who do you want? And I know at Celtic that the final decision will be down to the coaching staff who picks the players. So I just thought I'd get that one in when people talk about recruitment. Instead of saying it's one man brings them in. There's so many people have a say who brings them in. But ultimately, all clubs should do it. It's the manager and coaching staff decide who they want to work with.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest recruitment success at Rangers Charlie,
Sorry, Alex.
has been the manager and his staff, because they're on the cusp of something pretty impressive this season. Not just obviously what they sincerely hope will be the title and stopping Celtic's 10 in a row, but also what Antwerp in the Europa League, potentially winnable tie. You're into the last 16. This could turn out to be a real kind of blue ribboned year for Steven Gerrard.
It can be, but Rangers have turned a lot of players over since Steven's come in. You know, he's felt each year he's had to improve the quality. He's done that. You know, he's had a few that's not worked. But as each season's gone on, they've got better and the recruitment's been better. I think Ross Wilson's a big key to that now. Ross is very experienced in what he does and finds little gems for small money, like Celtic have done over the years. And they've got a value amongst the squad now. I don't think Rangers will make many changes. I think it will be more outs than ins. You know, you've got a few fringe players that probably will need to go and play. But I think if the right player comes along that they think they can enhance the squad and that can get them over the line, then I think they'll look to do business. But they won't be selling anybody that's an asset to the club, that's for sure. And going on Celtic's one, it's, you know, like Gordon said, is it a panic buy, or I only think there's only two positions really Celtic need to strengthen, and that's in the right back area and the right wing area. Forrest, I think, has been a huge blow to them. He's a very good player, and Gordon's worked with him. As a player I really like. He's got speed, he's clever, he's, you know, can score the goals. He's a good big time player for Celtic. And Frimpong, I still think that there's a bit out there about him defensively. I think he's more of a sort of, yeah, he's good going forward, but defensively I think he's poor, and I think they would probably be the two positions that I would look at from the outside that I'd look to try and strengthen.
Yeah. Alec, if there's only one team effectively in the title race up north, what about down south? How many, after City's impressive win over Chelsea, how many runners and riders do you think can seriously consider winning the Premier League in England?
Well, you're right. There is a few runners and riders, you know, and City's demolition job on Chelsea last night, who, let's face it, are off form a little bit in previous games, and I think just trying to look for a formula that's typical. You know, when you think of Chelsea teams in the past few years, they always had good presence up front, and they look as if they're lacking that a wee bit if Abraham's not in the team. But at the same time, Abraham, he's a kid, he's still learning his trade, he's not got all the answers as yet. But Chelsea, certainly, you know, Frank will be, that'll be another sleepless night last night, thinking about how I get this right. And Man City, you know, did a number on them, you know, De Bruyne up front, and, you know, the sleeping centre forward, or whatever the term you use for it, and you know the other smaller players up front beside him, but really highly mobile, who caused Chelsea no end of problems in the first half last night, in particular. So sorry, and winning the league, then you know, obviously Liverpool and, you know, are going to be hard to dislodge from the top of the table. But City and Man United now are on the coattail. So
best three.
Sorry, I can't stop laughing when Alex says the sleeping centre forward. I've signed a few of them in my life. Trust me. Strikers that I've signed and think, what was the day saying to him? Sitting on the bench.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. One thing Kevin De Bruyne was not doing was sleeping.
Withdrawn. He'd be as well if he's withdrawn.
There you go. The false nine, whatever the hell, the inverted nine. He was close.
Even worse.
He was good.
I've had a few false names as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Sorry, Matt. No, I was just saying last night, I just thought it was fantastic that, you know, we're talking about systems, and if you think about the players they had up front, Zerich, Pulisic, and who was the other one they had up front last night?
Ziyech.
And somebody. Vietch, yeah. For all the good players that they had, you know, it's all about good players, because the other side, their good players just played better than them. They were untouchable. And you can say all you want. It's go back to Celtic. When you've got Edward and Griffiths playing up front, it's a different ball game. It's a different thing altogether. Where the possession the other day there, but because they had two strikers, two players, top players playing, it's a different game. Now De Bruyne's not been at his best this year, and I think a lot of players have been a bit like that because it's been a strange season. And De Bruyne was at his best for 25 minutes, game blown away. He was just too good for anybody. Him going in there and Sterling and Foden staying at wide but coming in now and then, and Gundogan running past De Bruyne. So it was like four players were absolutely magnificent for 25 minutes. And they had a good shape when they're defending. It's funny enough, going back to Rangers, sorry about that, a lot of their success attacking wise is started with a good defensive shape to start with. You can go attack. I've been noticing that the last couple of years. That teams who have got the best defensive shapes attack better. So it was just about players last night, really, and great players playing really well. And I think Chelsea got shown up a bit at the back because I don't think they're used to the ball from the back's that great. And maybe Thiago looked like he's just maybe past his best at the moment.
Well, he's 36. I think is a big ask in the modern day Premier League. The pace it's played at. Charlie, Leicester obviously big win for them at Newcastle. They've done it before in this kind of season. You can't, I don't think, discount the likes of Tottenham. Certainly not Manchester United in the form they're in. There's a lot of teams will be thinking this might be our year.
Yeah, listen, I think if you go each team, I don't think each team played particularly well consistently all season. You know, Liverpool have had a dip and they've lost, 7-2 at Villa. United have just not playing well, but they keep winning football matches, and all of a sudden they're joint top of the league. And it's interesting to see that when Mourinho sets a team up, he knows how to win a football match, knows how to win a league. So they'll obviously put them in there. But there's 5 or 6 that are in the mix. Leicester again yesterday, 2 great goals to beat Newcastle, and Brendan, give him his credit where it's due. He's got a good side there. He's turning good players into top players, consistent with what he's got, and then maybe they might add a couple in the window to improve them. So they'll go. So it's it's an open league, and it's good. It's better than one team running away with it. At least we've got a few that are in with a shout, and it's good to watch.
Yeah, Alec, I wonder also whether key injuries, they're always important, obviously, in a season like this where it feels like they could happen more likely than not. You think about the individuals that are pivotal to some of those teams. Bruno Fernandes at Manchester United, the aforementioned Kevin De Bruyne at City, Vardy at Leicester, Kane at Spurs. One player that a team will significantly suffer the absence.
Yeah, I think that there's many examples of that over the years. When you lose a key player and all of a sudden it affects the whole team. And these players you've rightly named can have that effect as well. We've seen it in the past. When Gareth Bale left Spurs a few years ago, he was in sensational form. He goes to Real Madrid. They get a lot of money and they bring in, wow, we got 7 players, so that's going to change the face of the team and the face of the squad. But, those 7 out of those 7 players, there was probably hardly any found a bit of form until maybe a year later, and it really affected the whole of the Spurs team. So, to lose one of these key players, the names that you've mentioned, then it can have a massive effect on a single team. Bruno Fernandes, for instance, the form he's been in the whole season, and since he came to United, and they normally get a penalty every week as well. And he has just been a sensational player for Man United. He seems to have galvanised a few others, and that's what happens. When a new player comes, then the other players get inspiration from an individual's performance, such as Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah. Tonight's game, Gordon, obviously Southampton, Liverpool, your old team, the Saints are good side these days, aren't they, under Hasenhüttl, and Liverpool just slightly struggling to break teams down at the moment. Southampton might fancy that on the break.
Yeah, it's Southampton. It's not a modern thing. It's always been there, but we kind of got bamboozled with science and systems for a while. The fitness level at Southampton is phenomenal, and a big player in that is Stuart Armstrong, making runs, unselfish runs for everybody else. But playing 4-4-2, well, playing two strikers, they can move their midfield about. Sometimes they have a winger, and Stuart Armstrong's tucked in at one side, and sometimes the four of them are narrow. But they play with two strikers, which we've been told for years. Dave Bassett told us that was a good way of playing 20 years ago. Mike Bassett, was it Mike Bassett in that comedy 4-4-2? Yeah, so it can be done as long as you've got good players going about and working hard. But Liverpool, they've done well, considering the centre backs, they're literally playing with two kids at times, somebody who's a midfield player there. So Liverpool, I think, have been hit more than anybody else, really, in terms of injuries. And for them to still be near the top of the league, I think is fantastic. If they do get settled centre backs, I think they'll take off again. At the moment, I think the midfield players and the strikers I'm not playing with that freedom because they don't look back and see Van Dijk and Matip there. I think that's a problem for them just now. And even the full-backs, you might say, might just have to stand back 10 yards because I'm not so sure if I go here that these two that are playing centre half now can deal with 2-for-2 or 1v1. So it's interesting. The boys they're right about. I think the league has got to be decided on individual players and who from each team can produce performances like De Bruyne did yesterday. And I think that's got to be more so in this climate we're working on, where teams are devastated with self-isolating and things like that, and maybe getting dropped with their teams because they've been stupid enough to go out and have a party somewhere.
No, absolutely, yeah. Do you think, therefore, Charlie, that as much as it's hard to do the right business in January at times, Liverpool have to sign a centre half?
Yeah, I do. I think they'll look to somebody with Premier League experience maybe to try and get them through till the end of the season. It is a worry. And like Gordon said, I think if you look at Trent and maybe Robertson, they'll be looking to probably no adventure as forward as more as possible with the two at the back, leaving them, 1v1 or 2v2 at the back. So that'll be a little bit of a blow to Liverpool, because that's where the threat comes from, the wide areas. I think centre back will be the position they'll strengthen. I don't think they'll look to do any other business. Van Dijk obviously is a big blow for them, but I think the lads that have come in, Williams or Fabinho or whoever has just sat in there, they've done a good enough job. And let's say if they can get a recognised centre back in this window, then I think, like Gordon said, I think Liverpool will be key to winning the league.
Yeah, and on to the two semi-finals this week in the Carabao Cup, the League Cup. Like Brentford go to Tottenham. You'd make Spurs, I'm sure, pretty strong favourites, but I think Brentford have already beaten 3 or maybe even 4 Premier League teams. They are no mugs under Thomas Frank.
No, they've been excellent since losing a couple of players as well. And they just seem to keep recycling. And the performances recently, some of the results have been quite amazing. I would, however, believe that Spurs, that this is a bridge too far for them, and that Spurs will make this their first final in a wee while, a couple of seasons or so. But Brentford, my goodness, they have recovered from losing some great players, and they seem to be doing it all over again. Brilliant recruitment, as Gordon said earlier. We speak about recruitment. It is so important, and Brentford have been one of the best in the industry for that.
They have. They get the kind of Moneyball tag, don't they? Whether, however scientific or otherwise, the system, it certainly works for them, Gordon. The other game, obviously, City go to...
Well, to be fair, I don't... To be fair, I don't do Moneyball, but I could tell you Ivan Toney was a great player.
Yeah.
I've not got the stats. I went and watched them loads of times. And my son used to work there. And I've been telling people for 2 years that this guy is coming on, and he's got the intelligence to take things in. He's getting better. He scores all sorts of goals. So, there is sometimes just an eye for things. Sometimes stats can get in your way. some people
That was the
just
lad
want
Peterborough, Gordon. Was that the Peterborough kid? Was that the Peterborough kid? That was Tony.
Ivan
Yes.
Tony.
Ivan Tony from Peterborough.
Yeah, so I seen him quite a lot when I used to go and see Peterborough, and I was trying to convince people that that he was a player that some teams should sign. Similar to John McGinn when he was at St Mirren. I kept telling people that you should sign this fella. What an attitude! What an attitude! So that sometimes there's just an eye for it. Sometimes I can get it completely wrong, by the way. Don't worry about that. As I've proved many a time.
But do you think?
I was going to say, give us the next caps off the rank.
Sorry.
Do you think the Tony one, people were a bit sceptical because obviously Dan McAntney likes to put a massive price tag on his players, and do you think the clubs were scared of that or what?
I think it was a lot of money coming from that league, Charlie. I think the League One was usually. I think it was cost about 9 million, and I think that was at the reach for most people, you know. And the wages are high as well. But I think sometimes you've just got to take a chance on players, especially if you know their background. I think that's one thing we miss out on players these days. We do that many stats. Do have to find out what type of guy is he? Does he want to improve? Does he want to get better? He's got determination about him. Has he got intelligence to get better? So that's the things you don't get in stats. And maybe that's why Brentford do that more than just stats, if you know what I mean, Charlie.
And the thing different for nowadays from when both of you were managing, social media. So if you wanted to see what a player was like and what his family or background, it's easy. You just go on social media and you'll see what kind of lifestyle he lives or whatever, and that seems to then be the character of the person. So nowadays it's easier to get a type of character without, like, I understand you make phone calls and that, but before you even think about making a phone call, you could even just go on social media and see what type of character he is, how he lives his life, because majority of footballers now live their life on Instagram.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Most people live their life on Instagram now. So lucky I'm not involved in that. I'm lucky for the whole British public. I'm not involved.
Like it or not, it's the world we're in. Charlie, what about the Manchester derby at Old Trafford? City were a counter-attack team for that brilliant 20 minutes last night against Chelsea. United are kind of the same. So how do you see it?
Yeah, but the same cat and mouse. I think United did a good counter-attack with the speed of Rashford, Martial up front, the quality of Bruno Fernandes. But let's say City have got terrific players. You'd still probably put City as favourites, but I think it's going to be an interesting game because it's a one-off game as well. So both teams will. I think they might just have a proper go at each other and see how it goes. But it's a game I'm looking forward to watching.
Right, to wrap it up, boys, give me the names of the league title winners in England and Scotland and the winners of the 2 Carabao Cup semi-finals. Go on then, predictions time. Alec?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. No, I'll let Gordon go.
All right. All right.
I want to hear the wise man.
Scottish Premiership.
Yes.
Right. Hibs.
I thought you might say that. Yeah. What
So
about
Hibs,
England?
Liverpool. Once they get
and
the
the
centre back sorted.
Yeah. And the 2 semi-finalist winners in the League Cup?
Tottenham and Man United.
Thank you very much. Charlie?
City, Tottenham, Rangers and Liverpool.
Right, so City to beat United, Liverpool to win the league, Rangers and Tottenham. Yeah, I got you. Right, Alec, you're on the fence. You need to get off.
Okay, like Gordon, it'd be nice to see something like an old team. I'm going to go for City, Tottenham, Rangers, same as Charlie. I'm following Charlie.
So, who's winning the English Premier League for you? City?
No. We're sorry. I thought it was the Cops. I'll go for Liverpool.
Okay.
Did we all go for Liverpool? Charlie, did you go for Liverpool, Charlie? Aye?
Yeah, I went for Liverpool to win the league.
You did, all three of you.
All
three of you.
by the way,
you've all gone. Go.
By the way,
did you go for
I went for Liverpool, aye. And before we go, you're talking about talent over the weekend. If anybody has a chance to see Dundee's first 2 goals, phenomenal talent. Seriously, go and watch it, Alec. One of the goals was the slowest mazy run I've ever seen in my life, and the first goal was.
Great
it was
skill.
great. It looked like it was in slow motion though. But the fact was, it was. But the first goal was everything I've been trying to teach kids for the last 15 years about crossing. So thank you very much, Charlie. Made my job a lot easier.
Yeah, it's that the state coaching sessions you put on up at the RPC. I've been watching.
You see, the whole of life is on YouTube. It's all there if you want it.
Send the video, Gordon. Send the video.
BBC Scotland, you get on. It was on Friday night. You'll get it. Don't worry about that.
Good shot.
Right, that's enough of the adverts for all the other channels. Watch Football Pass. Thanks, boys.